I'm so happy you all are here. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Yasufumi Nakamori. I'm a Vice President of Arts and Culture here at Asia Society and Director of Asia Society Museum downstairs. So welcome to Viewpoints, Art and the Post-Colonial Activism, which will be the topic two guest speakers will be speaking tonight. Let me please start with a land acknowledgement. The Asia Society is situated in Lenape Hokin, homeland of Lenape diaspora, and historically a gathering and trading place for many diverse native peoples who continue to live and work on this land. Lenape means real person, original person, and it's important to remember that Lenape collectively are living and breathing community. Let us honor their legacy and pay our respect to elders, both past and present. And diverse indigenous peoples still connected to this land. We respectfully acknowledge and honor all indigenous communities, past, present, and future, for their ongoing and fundamental relationship to this region. Before we begin, please take this moment to silence your mobile devices. I'll be giving a short introduction of tonight's program and the speakers. After the conversation between the speakers, there'll be an opportunity for Q&A, followed by a reception on the ground floor garden court. Tonight, we are honored to host the artist Richard Bell, who is based in Brisbane, Australia, in conversation with Carin Kuoni, Senior Director and Chief Curator of Vera List Center for Art and Politics at the New School here in New York. Viewpoint is a series of conversations in which prominent visionary figures in the creative arts are interviewed on stage before a public audience about their work, career, and relationship with the Asia Pacific. Viewpoint has been made possible by the generous support of Ashish and Dinia De Vitri. Thank you. Tonight's program and other programs this weekend with Richard Bell at Asia Society are supported by Milani Gallery in Brisbane and Osmos here in New York. We thank all of our patrons and supporters for their generosity that enables us to bring high-quality programs to our audience, both in person and online. So in tonight's Viewpoints conversation titled Art and Post-Colonial Activism, we will unpack the age-old question, can art have a social impact? Of course it can, but in what way and how? Those are the kind of questions we're going to be posing. For years, Richard has been working at the crossroad of art and politics, advocating for indigenous sovereignty through activism. He addresses the mainstream systematic colonialism that permeates Australian society, a reality many First Nations peoples around the world continues to experience. Together with Carin, Richard will retrace his journey from activist to artist and how this work and his role in Aboriginal community has shaped the discourse on Indigenous and human rights in Australia and beyond. Now, I will briefly introduce our speakers. You also have their longer bios on our website as well as in your printed program you have now in your hands. Richard Bell was born in Charlesville, Australia, and is a member of the Kamilaroi, Kuma, Jiman, and Gurungurun peoples. One of the Australia's foremost artists, he explores the complex artistic and political problems of Western colonial and indigenous art production through painting, installation, performance, and video. He grew out of a generation of Aboriginal activists and remains committed to the politics of Aboriginal emancipation and self-determination. In 2003, he received the Telstra National Aboriginal and Torres Strait Art Award, the longest-running annual Indigenous Art Award given by the Museum and Art Gallery of Northern Territory in Darwin. His work has been exhibited internationally, including at the Vera List Center for Art and Politics at the New School in New York, Documenta 15, Kassel, Tate Modern in London, and Performer 15, New York. His work is also in collection of major museums worldwide, all over the world. Carin Kuoni is a senior director and chief curator of the Vera List Center for Art and Politics at the New School here in New York, and also assistant professor of visual studies. As a curator and writer, she examines how contemporary artistic practices reflect and shape social, political, cultural conditions. She has organized numerous transdisciplinary exhibitions and also conferences, actually, and is co-editor and editor of the numerous related publications, including Assuming Boycott, Resistance, Agency, and Cultural Production 2017. Most recently, she co-edited a really important volume titled Studies into Darkness on the Perils and Promise of Freedom of Speech, published in 2022. Now please join me in welcoming Richard and Carin.
I think this is already working. Yasufumi, thank you so very much for this invitation. It's really a great pleasure to be here at the Asia Society, always, but particularly on occasion of this exhibition, the exhibition which is unfolding, I think, over 2 floors below us. And if you haven't seen it yet, I urge you to go and visit Madin, an exhibition of traditional Aboriginal bark paintings. And I gather, Richard, you are bringing the Embassy project to the Asia Society as part of this exhibition. So we thought it'd be lovely to have a conversation with Richard, get a sense of your practice and share some of the major moments within your work and your trajectory from, as the invitation says, from being an activist to becoming an artist. Not sure there is a moment when that changes. And then we would welcome your questions and comments. I think they're also being collected online through the chat function that we all know really well at this point. So maybe we should just dive in.
I'm ready.
And you will be surprised maybe to see us in this incredibly comfortable setting about art and politics. And here is a beach umbrella, and here are these lovely lounge chairs. And what we are really focusing on, however, is the political agency and relevance that is possible and can be suggested by art practices. And we are looking at how you have been able to build a community among Aboriginal artists, specifically those who are living in urban contexts. And before we dive in and look at some of these questions, maybe we will just give you again a 10-minute overview of some of the works, the various practices, the various techniques, the various modes of your work that includes painting, installation, video, etc. It's a really kind of a bird's eye view, flying over various moments of your practice. And we will maybe start with this work on your left here, which we also see in the image there.
Well, this is the work that it was made during COVID, and it's 6 metres by 3 metres, 6 metres wide by 3 metres tall. Took over a year, and it's about a protest, celebrating moments of protest, history, Aboriginal protest in Australia. There's some, there's all sorts of different things in there that were thrown in there, like that one there with ostica, that's like a word or term for the use of the Southern Cross by the right wing in Australia. So they pulled out this thing, and I dubbed it the ostica. And one of my mates did that painting, and we reproduced it in this painting. It was like a banner, for a protest that he took there. So, and there's a picture of him there beside it. There's like Nyet, you know, Russian, of course. There's like always was, always will be Aboriginal land. It's one of the things that what's that now? No Trumps, you know, like. I like to splatter these paintings. I like they're sort of too beautiful, sort of thing. So
it's
if I don't.
It's also significant painting. I mean, all of them, all of the ones that we're going to look at are because it marks and returns to different moments in your own practice as an artist and different moments of art historical significance. So the splattering, of course, is a reference, I believe, to abstract expressionism and, you know, people like Jackson Pollock and others influential people here in Western art history.
Yeah, and also Indigenous, you know, native, you know, history here. So
of course, yes, yeah. And then the paintings of protest posters are very often based on photographs of actual protests. The composition as such is an accumulation of various moments. So all of this suggests also a simultaneity and the presence of a historical moment that shapes the current moment as well. And I thought that's also why it's so particularly interesting to have this conversation with you at this moment when, at least in this country, I think many of us feel we're either at a confounding moment of unbelievable, irreversible change and transformation, or to some it feels a bit like a déjà vu and more of the same. And I think your work speaks very much to the consistent presence of histories by different communities that all are brought into the moment of an exhibition or your art project.
yeah, for sure. There's so many different references in there. You know, there's a reference says remember Yurawalla. You know, Yurawalla was this fantastic painter from the Northern Territory, and when Picasso saw his work, he said, "I've wanted to paint like this all my life." So I think so. And there was a show with some Yurawallas in Sydney, and the ownership was contested, you know, by the community, you know, so that they own these things, and they were actually officially owned by somebody else. Two of my mates went down and broke into the gallery showing these two paintings and stole them, you know, and then they got picked up by the police and you know, taken to court and that sort of thing. And they argued that you can't steal something from yourself, and they won. So, that's a little sneaky little reference to a win that we had, you know,
Right.
along the way. So.
You and I decided to share this clicker, so maybe we'll just go through a few more images, and you should also, of course, feel free to advance as you see fit.
Okay, this is a seminal work of mine. It was created in 2002, and I painted this to go with an essay that I wrote of the same name, Aboriginal Art, It's a White Thing. Bell's Theorem, Aboriginal Art, It's a White Thing. I was put onto Bell's Theorem by an artist whose practice and approach to art making I appropriated here for this piece. And he was talking about Gödel and other mathematicians, and he mentioned this Bell's Theorem. I thought, oh wow, this sounds cool. So I wanted to write an essay, you know, and that gave me the idea to call it Bell's Theorem. I kept this work. I've not sold it because I think it's pretty important from where I was. This led to me winning the National Aboriginal Art Award. You know, like I actually painted that painting to win the thing. I started a rumour the week before that I won it, and then when they rang me up to win it, I said I don't believe you. You know, so, you know, I said, and you got to buy a ticket for my daughter too, you know, because she got to come with me. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I didn't believe them until they sent me the ticket, you know, like for Sissy, you know, to come along with me. So,
could you tell us a bit more about Bell's theorem, actually?
Oh, Bell's theorem is this Irish mathematician. John Bell, who...
I meant yours.
Well, mine, oh.
Which is...
Well, his is interesting too. Like, he disproved one of Einstein's theories, so it was quite important.
Yeah.
Mine is, you know, a critique of the Aboriginal art industry, you know, like in Australia. It's still a white thing, you know, like white people run everything to do with money, you know, like white people are there, you know, like, and it's a form of extractivism actually, you know, like, so, you know, with the regulation, exploitation, and that sort of thing. So, that was I did write that critique back in 2002 as an excuse to show with the white guy that got popped into my show, my solo show, that I had to have. You know, the gallerist shoved me in with, propped me up with Michael Nelson Juggamara and Emily Nguara, two, you know, of the foremost, you know, Aboriginal artists, you know, in Aboriginal art, and also Immense Tillis, this white guy, you know, like, who prompted me to basically write this thing here. I wrote that as an excuse to be in that show with that motherfucker. So,
and Rachel, can you tell us a bit, or introduce us a bit more to the demands and the claims of Bell's theorem? Because, as you said, it was written in 2002. You had this exhibition with the Vera List Center last year on occasion of receiving the Jane Lombard Prize for Art and Social Justice, and we reprinted part of Bell's theorem, and many others have as well. I mean, it's such an incredibly foundational text that it'd be great to get a better sense of what the demands entail, and how you went about writing it, and how you publicized it.
Oh, I like I said, I wrote it as an excuse to think, and in it I aired a lot of the problems that Aboriginal people had been, you know, airing about, you know, complaining about what was happening, you know, to our people. You know, like, and I didn't quote anybody. You know, like, I just made all these assertions, you know, which I defied academia to prove me wrong. Yes, right. I think so. And it was like I pointed out things, you know, like that needed to be pointed out. You know, like you know, that Aboriginal people needed to have control of these things, of the art. Even today, you know, nothing has changed really, you know, like in this regard. So, oh gee, I think I've only read it twice since, you know, like in 20 years or something.
It's the title of the actual theorem is precisely what's on this work. Aboriginal art, it's a white thing. So you were talking in it also about the construction of an art movement and how various entities, whether it's the commercial galleries or the museum institutions, and certainly the Western art world, are all complicit in creating a market that also is supposed to be limited and create certain divisions among different people and
Yeah.
groups?
Yeah, well, there's certainly Aboriginal art, in terms of the West, in terms of the market, is, the rural, remote, real Aborigines, from the remote areas, and well, 80% of the Aboriginal population live in the cities, and were overlooked and that sort of thing. So, and there's a lot of protocols, that we have, that are just run roughshod over. Whenever artists are brought to the cities, there's never any notification, of the local people, the local traditional owners of the land there. So, which is, for blackfellas is just, it's really important to do that, And so these artists from these remote areas are kept away from us. They never get to mix with us. We never get to talk with them about what's going on in their place, and us exchanging with them what's going on in our place.
There's such interesting parallels to what you describe and what we're experiencing also, of course, in the US.
Of course, colonialism was a popular game,
Right. And with Lenape-Hoking, being the centre with the highest density of Indigenous peoples in the US, and at the same time, it's not one group anymore because, of course, Lenapes have been forced to leave and have been forced settled in Oklahoma primarily. So I'm also curious about questions of solidarity and what tools one can introduce in order to speak about and with people who are not present in order to maintain a specific urban or cultural identity in an urban context which is very diverse.
Yeah, it's very diverse, even in Brisbane, the city that I live in. It's very diverse. There's essentially a group south of the river and north of the river.
Right.
There's shared territories. There's an island, just in the bay there, in Moreton Bay, where Stradbroke Island, Minjerribah. That there's three different groups of people there.
Right. So, Richard, can you speak a little bit to how what do you introduce in order to create opportunities for a shared community of people who are of Indigenous backgrounds but come from different cultures? And I'm also interested in that because the exhibition that we're seeing downstairs, does exactly what Bell's theorem addresses and focuses on to some extent. It's a very cohesive community. I think the work was created over the last 60 or 70 years. It comes from one specific location, Northern Territories. Yeah. And that has all the attributes that Bell's theorem is trying to not dispel, but to address and to overcome and to broaden.
Okay. Well, Yirrkala is one of the wealthiest Aboriginal communities in the whole country. They've had bauxite mining there, for decades. So and they benefit through the land rights legislation that was passed there in, I think, 1975. But historically, Yirrkala has, a really important part to play in the Aboriginal land rights movement, because they took the first action to the High Court. The case was called Millirripin versus Nabalco. And that was these people. Some of those people, who made art downstairs, were involved in in that process as well. So I know a few of them. They've been down south, like, and I took Bundak Marika to the Netherlands. There was a show in Arnhem, and she was from what is now called Arnhem Land. So I took Bundak Marika, who's this fabulous, artist from Yirrkala, and has got some work downstairs here. So I took her to Sonsbeek in 2016, I think it was. I think Ron Gripper, that was the beginning of my engagement with Ron Gripper.
I see, yeah.
Damn. That was a long answer. I usually give short answers. I need a Negroni or something. Just slow me down.
Going further with these questions about what the Indigenous populations or artists face, and in different contexts, including the US, I've been intrigued by the fact that throughout your practice, I believe you have referred to the Black Panther movement, to civil rights developments here and fights and advocacy in many different instances. You've also collaborated, I believe, with Douglas Emery.
Absolutely.
So could you speak a little bit to the fascination that and the importance and the interest that you have in what has been happening here in this country over the last 30 or 40 years?
Oh, well,
and maybe a work like this would be an interesting.
This is a collaboration with Emery Douglas. He did the drawing there. A funny little thing about this, Emery painted the two black guys, in about 5 minutes. He drew them up, and it took him 3 days to draw Peter Norman, like the white guy. Anyway, like this is, I think most people know this. This is one of the most famous images, in the world. In world history, it's like in the top 5, most famous images. Those guys, Tommy Smith, John Carlos, and Peter Norman, in that protest. Norman actually, they asked him for permission to do this act, and he agreed, and he wore this badge for human rights and UN badge for human rights and that sort of thing. So, but the Black Power movement in the US, had a great impact on us, because we were looking at the things that the Black Panther Party were doing here. They had breakfast for children programs. They had childcare centres. They had health care centres. They had legal service, legal representation. For black people. So, we adopted those things. So they became a very important part of our struggle. And in making our lives easier. It was really hard. Living in Australia at. In the 60s and that sort of thing, I don't know, in the 50s, must have been so much worse, going further back. But thankfully, thanks to the black brothers and sisters here, with their struggle, we picked up, a lot from them, and we learned how to organise and be together.
How did you link up with Emery Douglas? I mean, did you already
It was through art.
Yes, but did you already come to the US regularly?
Pardon?
Did you meet here?
No. We met at the Sydney Biennale in 2008.
Okay.
I was introduced by Carol and Christoph Bakaja.
I see.
Yeah.
And then collaborations happened
Yeah,
at
yeah.
that moment, or a few afterwards?
Oh, we got talking. I took him up to Redfern, like where our black community used to live, before the place was gentrified and they were removed. There was a few artists there. Like I think a lot of the Americans were shocked at how white Sydney was. There was, and it is a very white place. But they were shocked, and I ended up making more than a few trips up to Redfern, so these people could see some black and brown people there. So.
Okay, we'll continue a few. So these are, this is actually also a work. Do you see it there, or do you see it in there? That refers to Bell's steering.
Yeah, this is back in my Target days. There was this phase where blackfellas from all around Australia was using targets in their works. So this is one of mine. From that time. Yeah, Australian art does not exist. Basically, the only art that exists is Aboriginal art. Internationally, right. Can somebody name an Australian artist who ain't Aboriginal?
And then here are a few more.
Oh, this is Kick Somebody Else. That's an old one too.
In the Madain show, and I think and the exhibition catalogue, there's also reference made to certain ways of communicating, exchanges that must not necessarily be shared. A system, I think it's called the system, or system of sacredness, that the work as we see it downstairs is incredibly beautiful and attractive to a Western eye, and yet, of course, we're missing much. Yeah. The notion of opacity and of not necessarily being invited in, I think is also part of an Indigenous American position. Does that figure in a work like this?
Well, this is I'm referencing Emily Ngwara, who's probably the most famous Australian Aboriginal painter, and she did this thing with where she would paint. She would put the message down, and then she would cover it.
I see. Mm-hmm.
And so I just started doing this. It was me acknowledging Emily,
a tribute of sorts
through this process. Mm-hmm.
And there are more works like that. And
there's more like that. If you want to buy one, see this guy here.
This is also collaboration, isn't it?
No. This is from after I told everybody I won the National Aboriginal Art Award. I'd already started on these new works, because I knew that if I won this thing, they'd ask me, "What am I going to do next?" Me being a smart ass, I said, "Okay, I'm gonna be able to answer that. I've already done it." So what I did, I had these prints made up, these Roy Lichtenstein sort of prints made up, and I had a show that opened a week after this thing, this prize, this big prize. So, talk about manifestation before manifestation became a thing. I was already doing it.
This, I think, is.
Oh, this is a remake from a painting that I lost. It was accidentally thrown to the dump by one of my cousins who was helping me move. I was dodging debt collectors back in the 90s. I had to remake this painting, and basically, this writing here, this side here is a letter to the chairman of the People's Republic of China, offering them the opportunity for an equity development in the country now known as Australia. And over here is some draft, a draft treaty, and I wrote them that in that whole thing in 15 minutes, because I had 15 minutes to get. I had 30 minutes to get this artwork to the printers. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to get it done to have the painting made. So I had to write this thing. The guy rang up looking for the artwork and said, "Oh,
I have to write it first."
said, I'll be there in 30 minutes." And so I had to write that. Man, it looks like I'm a fucking genius. You're like, I know what. It's pretty good. You're like, I read it about 5 years ago. This was made in 2002, and like I read it for the first time in years, and I was like, holy shit, this is really good.
There is much else that's good. Actually, this ticker is now stuck, so I wonder if, should I just go back?
Oh, what's it?
I wonder if someone could help.
An excellent opportunity to participate. Oh, here we go.
I think it's just, oh, here we go, okay.
That was a letter.
Another installation, thank you. So we, of course, tomorrow you're going to present the Aboriginal embassy here, and this is actually the space of it. It's a project that you've developed and presented over at least 11 years in various different iterations. Yeah. We could talk about it now. Yeah, why don't you give us a brief introduction to it, please? Richard, can you give us just maybe how it began? I think it was the ICA in Perth for the first time. What the expectations are to create an Aboriginal embassy for a country that actually doesn't exist as a nation state, as a sovereign nation or group. And each time it's an opportunity really for people to come together, to have conversations, to consider.
I invited Emery Douglas here and
for this one here in
for this one in Performer,
okay.
Yeah, okay. And also Sylvia McAdam, who's a Canadian native who was one of the co-founders of the Idle No More movement, and she was also founder of the Tiny Houses project. So she's this amazing person, and she came down and spoke at that. I had the young women who created Black Lives Matter. I had them speaking at that embassy as well.
So each time it's a platform, it's a tent,
yes,
it's an invitation.
It's a platform for people who are being oppressed. I'm trying to offer solidarity with these other movements. To be successful, as just one little group, is not going to get you there. You're not going to make it. We're going to have to build global movements.
At the same time, the structure is always so fraught and so delicate and so temporary. It really is a kind of a beautiful poetic invitation to come together in one moment. Yeah. In my experience and what I've seen and documentation that I've observed, it's never a building. It's always a temporary shelter, very much offering protection for only a given moment.
Yeah, yes, and that was the idea. You know, like yeah, with the people who decided to send those 4 young men down to the Canberra, the national capital of Australia, in 1972. You know, like that was their aim. You know, like was to get our story out there. We had no money, you know, to speak of. You know, like well, the reason, you know, the first tent was a beach umbrella because they didn't have a budget, you know, for a tent. You know, like when they got sent down there by these young black people, you know, meeting to discuss what the Prime Minister had just said earlier in the day. He said that his government would never give land rights to Aboriginal people.
And
so,
that's in response.
Yeah, in response they sent these 4 young men down to Canberra.
Yeah, that was in 1972, I believe.
Yeah, 72,
right?
yeah.
And downstairs here at Asia Society is a beautiful, large work of yours that documents precisely that historical moment.
Okay.
And you know, creates this dialogue between what's in the exhibition, your work, and then what's happening here in the embassy tomorrow. We were given these slides very generously by the gallery, so just quickly want to get to a couple more, and then I'd like to show...
That wasn't Obama. You know,
like to show you also a video, share a video that you selected, but let's just briefly...
All my friends tell me it's really good.
Want to briefly touch before we see the video and then also open up to conversations with you. I'd love to touch on the notion of collaboration and partnerships and artists' collectives. And of course, I'm speaking about Proper Now, which was founded by you about...
Yeah, well, there was 2 other people. You know, like,
yes.
Where we got together and created this group because we were all trying to make it, you know, into art, and we were just frozen out. You know, like, and so, you know, I knew that if we got together, you know, and put out a press release, you know, we'd get a lot of attention.
And you were also able to, and here is another press release on occasion, or a press photo on occasion of this Jane Lombard Prize for Social Justice that was presented to you by the Vera List Center last year. You were also able to maintain, though, individual distinct artistic practices of each member, despite the fact that you are a extraordinarily dynamic and collaborative artist collective.
Yeah. Oh, it's expanded a bit too. You know,
yeah. These are just some installation photographs of this exhibition honouring you and Proper Now at the New School last year. And you get a sense of the diversity of practices and also the ongoing conversations between the different artworks across this gallery space.
Well, we just did a collaboration with Taring Padi, the Indonesian collective, you know, like, who collaborate on works. And this was the first time that any of us had collaborated together on a work. And it was an amazing experience. We all thought we were pretty good, but you know, these guys just made us look ordinary. And I'm glad it wasn't a public event. So, but you know, like they made us look really good. I love the idea of collaboration. I think artists there should be more artist collectives. You know, like you know, if you're not getting a show, you know, like get together with your mates and give yourself a show. You know, don't hang back. You know, give yourself permission to be an artist. You know, like costs you virtually nothing. You're like, we subsidise the art world. You're like, we do all this stuff for free and for cheap. You're like, and we get paid absolute crap money. You're like, and we deserve better. You're like, and if we had more collectives, you're like, and we got bigger drums and beat them fucking louder. You're like.
Well, certainly 2 years ago, the Documenta made an enormous attempt to bring various artists collectives together, and that was the last time before Tomorrow, I think, that the Embassy project was shown. No, that's not correct. Tate.
No, I went to Tate after
was
that,
in between. Yeah.
The Turbine Hall.
Let's look at this video, which is from 2 years ago, and I don't know whether you need to lower the light. Do you want to give a...
Turn the lights down a bit.
Should we just dive into it, or do you want to give a little introduction? Pardon? Shall we just watch it right away?
Okay, well, an introduction, a short introduction. This is a remake of the bulldozing of my home when I was 14 years old, and there's a bit of artistic license in there, but not too much.
It's about 7 minutes long.
Come on.
I wonder if we can lower the lights a little bit. That'd be great. Thank you.
Sarge, what's going on? They're here to smash our place down. Where are we going to go? We got nowhere to go.
Just settle down, Mrs.
You got to help us. What about Richie? Sarge, what are we going to do? We got no place to go.
Would you like to come and have a
You gotta help us.
I've got tea.
You gotta help us.
Mrs. Bell, you're supposed to be gone.
We don't have any money. We don't have any.
It's said here that they were supposed to be gone.
What's going to happen? Everybody, I know everybody's
couple of thoughts, but I really hope you will join us in this conversation and ask your own questions. It's an amazing video. It's incredibly upsetting. It's also helpful to, at least the way I see it, I just saw it now, but you know, to see that it's a movie set, not the place, I believe. You've been back there many times, and there are other videos showing.
That place where I lived was never as green as that.
But was it the same place?
No, it wasn't. It was a reenactment. We had to shoot it near Brisbane. I didn't have a lot of money to sing, and we had to rush to get it made. Carin Kuoni wanted.
I see. So it's not the place where this event actually occurred, which was the destruction of your childhood home in Mitchell, I believe.
Yes, yeah.
But it is, what happened is suggested through the props, but one sees at all times that it really is just props. It's a staged film. And I want to make the connection with the embassy, which also is, of course, it's not an embassy, it's a temporary proposition that although and because it's temporary, it is more poignant, it is more precious almost, and it gives you a sense of what is at stake to allow for a conversation, as you'll have tomorrow, to occur, or for a history that ends in such an incredibly violent moment of destruction of your home, to be transformative and become an artwork that then is something more than just the tale of the destruction of your home.
Yeah, well, there was. I like the little Eisenstein moment there. Where the bulldozer.
Oh.
It goes over the photo of my mother and myself and my younger brother.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a bit of a tearjerker, sort of. But yeah, look, we lived there on the Aboriginal Reserve. We had no electricity, no running water, and but we weren't allowed to live in the towns, until. I think it was the 60s. This was 68, February 68 that this happened. So,
and you were a young
I was 14 years old, I think at the time.
Yeah.
Turned 15 later in the year. It was pretty traumatic, and the copper that was there, the policeman, he asked my mother if we had somewhere to go, and she told him no, and he just went over to that council guy, the government guy, and said, you can't do this, unless they have a place to go. If they've got no place to go, you've got to come back. Wait until they've got a place to go.
Right.
So what they did, they went into town. But there was another reserve that was up the road where there was something like more than 20 families was moved out of there. So there was no houses left in town, but there were 2 condemned houses. So they uncondemned one of them, and that's where we moved to. I don't even know if uncondemned is a word, but. That's what they did.
Right.
So that's where we went to live in this totally inadequate place as well. So.
Richard, do you see a connection between that structure and the embassy that I'm trying to establish?
Oh, right.
Not really. And questions, please ask them or raise your hands.
Well, they weren't. That wasn't a temporary structure. The house that was bulldozed, it was really well made by my stepfather.
Right. I meant in the sense of promise or intimacy or shelter or safety, where something can be said or happened, like a family home or a temporary embassy.
Right. Yeah. Well, our lives, like everything was tenuous because they weren't in our hands. We were under the control of the superintendent. In our case, the superintendent was the local council. So like the town clerk or whatever, they were our controller sort of thing. So, and we were lucky that there they let us, go into town and shop and things like that, and we didn't have to get permission to go on and off the reserve. We were allowed to travel, whereas there are other reserves there that they had those restrictions until 1986. So it was really tenuous. Like it's a fact that apartheid was drawn from some trips by South African politicians to Australia in the 20s, where they looked at the Queensland Act, which is the protection, the Aboriginal Protection and Restriction of Sale of Opium Act of 1897. So that law still controls the lives of Aboriginal people living on reserves till this day. So and they can still have their movements blocked. Like Doomadgee got they were blocked by the government. There was some kind of trouble there, and they just stopped everybody from moving in or out. Like even if they had nothing to do with the problem that they had there. So.
How does one experience that and then eventually end up being an artist with an incredible painting practice, with the belief and the energy and the focus to bring a whole collective together of Aboriginal artists, and the determination to show and have the work seen in the best, highest regarded galleries, biennials, museums? In other words, what happened after that? You were 14 years old. You had lost your home.
Yeah. Oh, look. That made me determined to do something. Like it was a tin shack, yeah, but it was our home. Like that's where we lived. Like that's where we loved. So it was work. And Dave Bell built that home. Like there wasn't a nail in the place. He tied everything down. With wire. Like it made it much stronger than what it would be if it wasn't. There were houses in town with their roofs blown off and that sort of thing. Yeah. None of those tin shacks lost their roofs. The blackfellas knew that tying.
But you didn't. You were determined to do something.
Yeah.
You didn't become an architect.
No, no, yet. It was. I don't know how I became an artist, really, because basically my younger brother got me into making boomerangs and spears and little paintings and that sort of thing. I got into art through tourist art. So yeah, so
so you made that for a while, and you joined him in producing it.
I left my high-paying job, where I was running a corporation that I helped establish. and there was I had 25 staff under me. And
What kind of corporation was that?
it was a medical clinic, a childcare centre, and an adult education centre.
Oh, I see.
It was a combined thing.
Already informed?
Community-based.
Already informed by what you saw happening in the US, Black Panther?
No, the Catholic Church was delivering a service, these services to the people.
I see.
But they were under pressure to remove themselves and Aboriginalise the place.
Yeah.
They employed me to create a corporation that they could hand this property, which was on Aboriginal land, back to Aboriginal people.
Yeah.
And they gave me 18 months to do it, and I did it in 9, and then I quit that job and went and worked with my brother. Fuck, I don't know what I was thinking. But here I am, as a result of that. So.
Yeah. There's a question there in the back. I can't quite see.
Hi, Richard.
Hey, g'day.
How are you?
Pretty good.
All right.
Can't you tell?
I can tell. Humor. Let's talk about humor in your work and how you approach it, because it's very direct. It's very confrontational. It implicates the viewer. And sometimes it feels like you're trolling somebody. And the joke is on someone. How do you approach that, both as an artistic practice, but also as a political tool?
Oh, look, I think that's really cultural. My approach to it. With the humour, and I'm not going to say that Aboriginal people have a monopoly on that aspect, because every minority I see, uses humour, in this way. I think it's a coping strategy or mechanism. So.
I think also
This is why we do it.
what is also often, perceived by us as ironic is actually very sincere, and sometimes these demands are so absolute that we think, of course, Aboriginal art is not a white concept, but that is actually what you mean. And I think it's very interesting how often one misreads the work as being, a funny tongue-in-cheek commentary. Not that this was what was being suggested, but when it's actually very sincere and clear in its demands. Yeah, and it reminds me also, of conversations around questions of land back, land acknowledgement that Yasafumu offered so very nicely, and the question of how important is it, and do we at this point move on to a different form of reparation, which would be to actually give the land back. And in that vein, I think you would probably subscribe to someone like Eve Tuck, who says, it's not a metaphor, this decolonization and returning land actually has to happen. And there's no irony, there is no art about it. It's very specific, the demand.
Yeah. Oh, look, another question?
Oh, yes.
Thanks, Richard. I'm just wondering, referring to your point about the Aborigines Protection Act and the way in which Indigenous people's lives were restricted at every turn throughout Australia, but you mentioned Queensland. And I'm just thinking in terms of the Aboriginal Embassy as a response to that, but also in the current moment of rising nationalism, white nationalism globally. But then you saw in Aotearoa just recently, the Maori parliamentarians forming a haka because there's a Treaty of Principles Act that's going to gut the Treaty of Waitangi. And then when King Charles came to Australia, you had Lydia Thorpe, the Gunai Kurnai woman, tell him to fuck off, you're not my king. I'm just wondering, in that space, because legislation has failed, we had the failed voice referendum in Australia, which was it was problematic, but anyway. But I'm just wondering, is there a space in art to respond to the well, it's not even neo-colonialism, because colonialism never really has gone away from Australia. And so I'm just wondering how you imagine Indigenous artists responding to the attacks upon them, and the fact that certainly you've got governments galvanising to try to restrict, in the spirit of the 1890 legislation, the same sort of winding back, ripping out rights. And I'm just wondering if you see a space for art to respond to that, Indigenous art to respond to that, or Indigenous communities.
I think Indigenous communities, have responded to that. We are responding to it. This is a continuing process. And let's face it. Let's call it for what it is. We have land, we have resources. And these people want those resources, and they will get those resources. They will take those resources, come what may. And we're trying our best to claw back some land. That and trying to fight and hold and protect those lands. This capitalism is. It's the elephant in the room. That's the problem that we're fighting here. We have these democracies. They're in place, and that's who, and that's where the game is played. That's the theatre, right? The actions in the background and that. It's going to be very difficult, no, impossible for us to win anything substantial. They couldn't even give a voice to Parliament, let alone giving us land back. Land is so important. If they just can't consider that, they won't say it because they're afraid that other nations, will stop trading with them and this sort of thing. So, we have to be diplomatic. We have to. I think art is the best arena for us to respond to them. Lydia Thorpe's performance the other day was brilliant. What was the gold medal performance? Maybe silver after what's that woman at the Olympics, the breakdance? Right.
Another question there?
Hi, thank you so much for this talk and for being here. I wanted to ask you what message you have for activist artists now, especially activist artists who are facing current or imminent adversity, whether that be, through their activism with suspension, with jail or prison time, or through their activism as shown through art, where galleries are abandoning them, shows are abandoning them. You see this happening all over the place, and it's obviously disheartening is putting it mildly. And we're only in this country likely to see more of it to come. So I really would love to hear your message to the people facing this.
Well, we can help ourselves. We the artists can get together. There's enough of us, to get together and put on shows ourselves. It's already happening. This is happening all over the world. There's been a lot of cancelling, going on. For obvious reasons. Now, we haven't given up. We're acting against that. These people who have abandoned us. They've created a vacuum. In nature, if you create a vacuum, it will be filled. So there's not just money from one area. There's from elsewhere. So I think what we have to do is just keep playing. keep the band playing, like singing that song, like playing that play, and putting on our shows, like and talking with each other, like communicating, supporting each other, like and well, on another note, I think we should be building bot armies, billions of them, and sending them out to attack these right-wing bots. Let's go to war with bots.
Marco.
Hey, Richard. I have a question for you, Richard, about along these lines of building alliances and strategically, coming together globally. You've done a lot of this work. I mean, the Embassy Project is brilliant in this way in that, it's very site-specific. The way in which I was there in 2015 when you did it downtown, and you brought together the folks from Black Panther and AIM. So what's the strategy in terms of getting beyond things like, for me, one of the challenges is language, right? It's very Anglo. It's very, like, obviously you're addressing one colonial legacy. Are there ways or moments in which you've reached beyond that Anglophone world and maybe engage with Native folks outside of that? I haven't myself, but many of the people from the movement are involved in language, revival, like in Australia. It's pretty big, actually. One of the most important activists that we know, Gary Williams, he's out of Barraville, a place in Nambucca Heads, where Gary Foley also comes from. He's probably the most famous living, Aboriginal activist at the moment, and they've been involved in language for decades now. They've got, and that's just not one place. That's happening around the country quite a bit. The reason I'm not doing it because it's not my thing. I play rugby. Not soccer, not American football. So that's my game. Art, showing off and stuff like that. So.
But it's certainly it's a very important point that we. Also, because in collaborating with you in Propanau last year, there were also astounding differences in our understanding of certain English terms that really became apparent only in the collaboration. For instance, the notion of the black fellow, very, very differently approached in an Australian context than here. So as a cultural, organizer, curator, I think what we need to do is we can't excel in all fronts or try to fight all of these battles, but certainly a slowing down and a kind of respect towards everything that goes into creating a convening such as this or the Embassy Project tomorrow is very much needed, so that we, as culture producers, reconsider all the tools that we bring into conversations such as this, including language. One example, and that was actually also part of Documenta, was exhibition guides that were written in plain English or plain language, and it was fabulous and very helpful, and came in German and English, I believe. So those efforts at fine-tuning and making our communication, even if it at first sight seems plain English, and I know that's not what you were referring to, but even within an English language world, I think we need to be mindful of how these terms sit and land and are used by other communities than our own. Yes, maybe one more question then. Should we? Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Hi, Richard. Hey. Thank you so much for sharing everything. And, I love so many other of your films as well, which we haven't shown, which are kind of more, didactic and have these narratives and one of them us versus them. Anyway, I'm just rambling now. And my other favourite work is Pay the Rent with the, not the painting, but the one with the numbers. And maybe you can talk about that in a minute. But my main question is thinking also about, we're here at the Asia Society and downstairs is the Madian exhibition. And in the Australian art canon, it's always been kind of forced upon us, and I say us because I'm Aboriginal Australian as well, but it's a lot of the conversations around defining Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander art kind of centres around this dichotomy, a forced dichotomy of urban versus rural versus remote. But for some of us, like myself, like my country, quote unquote country, is in a, it's Brisbane. It's in an urban area. So a lot of people have this exoticized idea about going out on country. And a lot of people think that that means going to a beautiful natural wilderness. But for a lot of us, it means, going to, the city, or going to the mall or somewhere. But in talking about these dichotomies, like in our histories, we've been moved from country to missions, to reserves and, bounced around. But my question for you is kind of about this idea of the word urban when referring to, people like us who live in Brisbane, no matter where we're from. But do you think it's still relevant to use the word urban, or do you think we're, I'm interested in that term.
I don't know. You're like, I'm not the word police, so.
No, of course not.
I just don't. I don't know. Like, how do we describe it? You're like, why don't you come up with a word? You're like, to describe us. So, like basically, like it was. We all thought we was one. You're like. But then like we got these divisions imposed upon us. like so. I don't know. Like well, Destiny Deacon, dropped the C out of black. Like that's that's one way of like colonising a word anyway. So I haven't thought about that actually.
I think because I don't like it personally.
No.
I think it enforces this. I think it enforces this idea of the exotic other, or more authentic or less authentic. But really, and I talk for myself in this way, but like some people have been survivors of genocide for longer than others, and I think in the art world. That obviously there is a lot of money involved, like here on the screen now, Pay the Rent, that calculation. But when we talk about the art world in Australia, it does come back to money. It does come back to these like art centres and places, and in missions like, Cherbourg and places, there was that kind of that creative output that people had to do or wanted to do in order to have money to eat. So it comes down, I don't think people realise how dire things were, and even recently with like the Basics card and the Northern Territory intervention and everything. But yeah, I don't know, I've just been thinking about words and language and the colonisation of language and impositions.
Well, I don't know, I don't talk about it that much. Like, I'm thinking I'm going to write something about this divide that we have. So I'm not sure what will come of that, but I'll be looking at this issue where this is tied up in these divisions that we have.
Whether real or perceived, hey?
Pardon?
Kia ora. Sorry, I was just going to say, like, in terms of what you're talking about in terms of like urban and like non-urban, are we actually talking about the audience actually as opposed to the artist? Where we're actually thinking about how the artwork is perceived as opposed to how the artist is engaging in their own communities and making their own works. So actually there's a perception of like an urban Indigenous identity as opposed to like just an Indigenous identity. And actually, perhaps it's not the artists or the Indigenous people that are having issues in communicating and coming together as a community. It's actually how the audiences of artworks are putting those pressures on to perform a type of Indigenous expression. Yeah, exactly. I mean, wait, is that a question? I feel like we're having a talk. Sorry.
Yeah, just bring it back to also our current context, where the divisions between urban and non-urban societies are incredible, or are perceived to be very, very vast. But I think that might also be a topic for tomorrow. And
Actually, we can continue our discussion downstairs. We prepared drinks and food, so let's actually thank Carin and also Richard here.